Let me figure this out. That was like an amazing feat there. Hey guys, welcome back. So I got a really fun video for y'all today. So I'm gonna do kind of like a whole wrap up on a bunch of different palettes that Shop Hush sent me. So I've been trying out these palettes. I've been like swatching them and playing with them, trying them on my eyes, seeing how they wear. So I'm just gonna run through them and kind of show you some swatches, let you know my thoughts on them. A lot of these are meant to be dupes of high-end palettes, and I don't have all the high-end palettes that these are intended to dupe, but I do have a couple of them. So I'm gonna show you like a few side-by-side swatches and just kind of let you know like, how do I feel like these do as far as dupes go? Like, would I consider them a dupe and a good dupe? So yeah, we're gonna talk about dupes, we're gonna look at some swatches, and I'm just gonna talk about what I think about these palettes. So let's get to it. Alrighty, so first off, I have 3 different highlighter palettes to show you. So first off is the Oasis Highlight Kit, and this is by the brand Bad Habit. This is what the outside box looks like. Really pretty packaging. I think they do a great job of really making beautiful packaging that still seems to be like affordable, but still nice. Like it's raised slightly and just a pretty graphic. So I really think they do a great job at making pretty palettes that are still like keeping them within that really great price point. So this has a mirror up at the top. Here's what this one looks like. So it comes with 1 cream highlighter and then 3 powders. I believe that this one is the deeper of 2 different palettes. So there's this one, and I think maybe the Paradise palette. I can't quite remember the other name, but I think it might be Paradise. So really pretty, very pigmented. As far as formula goes on these, I find that the cream is pretty good. But cream highlighters are honestly just not my favorite, but I think this one works pretty well. I won't gravitate towards that one as much, but these are very nice. They're super creamy, very pigmented. Not the nicest highlighter formula I've ever tried, but for the price, I think it's really, really great. I would kind of compare them like as far as formula-wise to like maybe like BH Cosmetics, where it's a little bit thicker of a texture to them. So it may just take like a little bit more blending. I'm not wearing this one on my face today. I'm wearing one of the other ones. So it may just take a little bit more blending because they're just a little bit thicker of a formula, but they're still super pigmented and really nice. Next up is the Rosé Highlight Collection. So this is what the outside box looks like on that one. So there is that. Here is the palette. Really pretty kind of like gradient there. Really beautiful. On the back, you can kind of see like the colors that are coming in there. This one is very reminiscent of like a Anastasia Beverly Hills Glow Kit. I don't know which one this is exactly supposed to do, but I think it's supposed to have like that general sort of a feel to it. So you really get like a nice collection of different tones and color options in here. So you have like a peachy sort of a color, kind of like a cool toned taupey sort of a shade, a really nice icy color, some golds, a pinky shade. So I think they did a good job of like giving some nice variety. Again, there's a mirror up there. As far as how this one swatches, this one doesn't swatch as well. It's a little bit chunky and a little bit patchy, like when you swatch it. But I do have this one on my face today, and I've worn this several other times, and I feel like it performs really nicely on the face. Again, not the nicest highlighters I've ever used, but I mean, it's not like a $50 highlighter palette. So I think it's really, really nice quality for the price point. I love the collection of colors. I think this is beautiful. I have this on the inner corners of my eyes with a little bit of that one. I have this one on my face and just the tiniest little bit of that one, but mostly this one. So yeah, I think it's a really pretty palette. I think it definitely performs a lot better on the face than it does in a swatch. So if you swatch it and if you get it and you swatch it and you go, meh, try it on your face, because I really do think it performs a lot better on the skin on the face. Then there is the Unicorn Glow Highlight Collection. This is by Face Candy. This one is so pretty. I was really excited to get to try this one out just because it is like unicorny and beautiful and just fun. Like it's just a happy, gorgeous palette. It's so pretty. So I believe that this is supposed to be reminiscent of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Moonchild and Aurora palettes. I do have both of those, but I was comparing it and it's really like it doesn't match either of them exactly. So I think it's kind of supposed to be like pulling inspiration from those two palettes, but not like exact dead on color for color dupe. But I think it definitely has the same sort of like feel to it and theme, in that it's just like fun, colorful, creative highlighters. Again, it has a mirror at the top. These again have that kind of like chunky sort of a texture to them, like when you swatch them. But again, I feel like these work a lot better on the face. Is it quite as nice of a texture as the Anastasia Beverly Hills highlighters? I wouldn't say that they are, but I think that they do a really good job of holding their own and still being a really nice option. So if you are wanting that sort of like fun, colorful, creative highlighter, I think this is a really great option, because that's a lot to spend on a highlighter that's a little bit maybe outside the box, and it might be something that, you know, you want to try, but you're really just not sure how much you're going to use it. I would say definitely start with something like this, because this is really, really usable, still very good, and much more affordable. So I think it's really a pretty palette. As far as which of the highlighter palettes I like the best, oh, I don't know. I love the creativity of this one, but I think I'm probably going to get the most use out of the Rosé palette, just because the colors are like very usable and just really like neutral, beautiful highlighters. But I do love how creative this one is. This one is the Sugar palette. This is by Face Candy. This one is adorable. It's just happy and cute, and I love it. I love just happy makeup, you know? Makeup is an escape for me, so I love cute, happy packaging and just cute, happy makeup. So this is what this looks like. It's raised and everything, so just super nice packaging. I think adorable, super duper cute presentation. I mean, it even goes like on the sides, like the little candies are on the sides, so I think it's adorable. Really nice quality. I believe that this one is supposed to be sort of reminiscent of the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. I'm trying to hold these up where I don't like drop everything. Let's see if I can do this. Here we go. So you can see, I mean, they're not like the exact same layout, but there are some comparable shades in here. So I think that they kind of like switched up the layout on purpose, maybe like to, you know, I don't know, switch it up just slightly. But I think overall it's supposed to be a dupe for this one. So you can kind of see that it really does have a lot of the same shadows. So let me get these swatches and show you. Here are the swatches on this one. I mean, what? They're so good. Now, when I first got this one and I was like swatching through everything, this is the one that I was like not so sure about, because it wasn't swatching quite as well. But I think it's one of those things like you have to get into the shadows a little bit, because now that I'm into them more, they're swatching amazingly. I used this one on my eyes today. It performed beautifully. They're just super duper pigmented, really nice and creamy. The mattes are, I mean, a little bit soft. I wouldn't even call them powdery. I mean, they're just a little bit soft, but I think it's still a very nice formula. I do think that all these shadows across the board need a good primer. I think that really does make or break them. And honestly, I would say that about any eyeshadow. Like, I use a primer every single day, and I find that a good primer makes a difference, because I used like a primer I don't like as much one day with one of these others, and I'll get to it in a second, and I could tell it didn't perform as well. But then when I switched back to my primer that I really love, which is my Wet n Wild primer, super affordable also, I noticed it worked really well. So I think that's just a little side note tangent. I think a primer definitely makes a big difference. So I am wearing these with a primer, but I think they perform really nicely. Well, my camera rudely cut me off, but what I was saying is I have a couple of comparison swatches here in kind of an awkward spot, but hopefully you can kind of still see it there. But the Too Faced shadows are swatched on the bottom, and the Sugar palette are swatched on the top. So I am really, really picky about saying something is a dupe. And I would say that these are not exact dupe eyeshadows, like these colors specifically right here, because I can see a slight difference in their color tone. But if you get these on your eyes, you won't be able to tell the difference. As far as like how they swatch and perform, I think they're super comparable. This one is just slightly more like corally peach right here. And then this one is slightly more pinky. This one has just a little bit more peach to it. So, I mean, like I said, I think most people would call that a dupe, but I just want to say I can see a little tiny difference in the color, but I think they're definitely very comparable. I think this is a super cute palette. And there is the Retro Love palette by Bad Habit. So that is what this one looks like on the outside. Pretty blue packaging. This is what the palette looks like. Nice and like sleek and thin too, which I really do like. Nice for storing them, nice for travel. This is what this one looks like. It has a mirror. Let me try to get this where I can like show it to you next to the Subculture palette. So here they are side by side. So the Retro Love is on the bottom and the Subculture is on the top. So super duper comparable. Like when you look for the different shades in each of them, I mean, it is really stinking comparable there. So yes, little side by side for you. Let me try to sit this down without dropping it or making a huge mess. Let's see how I can do this. I did it. That was like an amazing feat there. Okay, some swatches here. Now don't look at these are some comparison swatches, but as far as like the Retro Love, that one is swatched at the top there. Really, really pretty swatches. Now this one is very powdery. This is the one that I found that a good primer was really the make it or break it thing. Because the first time I used it, I used a primer that I don't like love super duper much. That's really good English there. It's not my favorite primer. I use the e.l.f. I don't remember what it's called. The e.l.f. Mineral primer or something like that. So, I mean, it works. It's a primer that works pretty well, but not as good as a lot of them that I use. So that one, I just noticed that it really, like the colors weren't building on themselves and they were kind of getting super duper muddy. But then I used my Wet n Wild primer that I think has a little bit more stickiness to it, like a little bit more tackiness to kind of hold the shadows on. And I definitely found that they worked better with that one. They just had more pigmentation, they built on themselves better. So I definitely think that a primer is a make it or break it with this palette, like a good primer. As far as comparison swatches, so on the top is the Retro Love palette and on the bottom is the Subculture. So some pretty comparable shades there. As far as like, is it an exact dupe? I mean, I definitely think as far as like the collection of colors, for sure. Formula-wise, they're definitely different. I think both of them actually are a little bit challenging to use. I think that the Retro Love just needs a really good primer. I think that the Subculture has its own kind of set of things you have to change when you use that palette. It's just like, it's very powdery and you know that whole thing. But I really like that palette. So I don't know, like I really do like them both. I do love my Subculture palette. I'm in the kind of camp of I love that palette. So this one is, I don't think, one of my favorites that they sent me, but you know, if you've been curious about this palette and kind of the collection of colors, maybe check this one out, but just have a really good primer to use with it. This one is the Royals palette by Bad Habit. Really pretty packaging on this one. Kind of like a, I don't know, marbled, plastered wall sort of a look. It's really, really pretty. Again, it's like a long, skinny sort of a palette, very nice and slender, good for traveling, good for, you know, what's the word? Putting in your collection, finding a spot for it. This one at first, honestly, it didn't really strike me what this was supposed to be duping. And I don't know why, because I think it's supposed to dupe one of my very favorite palettes ever, which is the Modern Renaissance palette from Anastasia. Let me try to get these side by side. Here they are side by side. So, I mean, they look really close. So I don't know why it didn't really like strike me at first. I'm not really sure why. Maybe like the shape of the palette or who knows? I don't know. But for some reason, I didn't get it at first. But finally, I got it. So I think it does a pretty good job of like kind of giving the overall same feel. I think for some reason the Royals palette looks lighter to me than the Modern Renaissance. And I'm not really sure why, because you can kind of find like, you know, you can kind of match up each of the shadows in each of the palettes. So I don't really know. Okay, so there are those side by side. So as far as swatches go, this one is still powdery. I don't find it to be as powdery as the Retro Love palette. I think what I'm finding with this one is there's a lot of kind of like very light shades, and I'm really fair complected, and a lot of those just really don't show up on me. So this one I do like, but I like to use it in conjunction with another one that I'm about to mention to you in just a second. Actually, the next two, I like to use this one in conjunction with the next two. By itself, I think it's nice, but I just like to pair it with something else. So, and here are a couple swatches down here, like comparison swatches. So on the bottom is the Modern Renaissance palette, and on the top is the Royals palette. So again, they're not exact. These two are like almost exact, but these two are slightly different. As far as formula goes, I mean, for me, the Modern Renaissance is just one of my very favorite palettes. So I feel like the formula on that one is just so hard to even compare. So I would say formula-wise, definitely not the same palette, but as far as like, you know, the colors in it and can you get the same sort of looks with it, I think you definitely could. So I think as far as like, is this a dupe? I think you could absolutely get the same sort of looks with each palette. Would they be the same vibrancy and wear time? I don't think so. I have found that these in the Royals palette wear well if I use a primer with them, but I just don't find that it has quite the same like vibrancy and pop as this one. But still, for the price, I think it's still a nice palette. Okay, y'all, must have palette. This one is so pretty. This is the Aphrodite 18 color eyeshadow collection by Bad Habit. So this is what the outside sleeve looks like. I'm starting to lose my voice, so we're gonna try to get through this video. I've been talking too long, but it is black with some really pretty gold kind of foiled looking details to it. Nice weighty sort of a feeling to it. It is a larger sort of a palette, does have a mirror in here. So I don't have the palette that's supposed to be duping. I believe that this is supposed to be duping the Huda Beauty, the more kind of like rose gold one. I don't own that palette, so I can't do like a for sure, you know, what does it look like next to it, but just from pictures and when I've seen it in store, I think this definitely kind of has that same sort of feel to it. This one, the quality, y'all, is so good. I mean, if you stuck this in a high-end makeup store, I don't think anybody would say anything about it. Like, it would totally look like it completely belongs there because these mattes are really nice and they blend really nicely. I mean, I wouldn't say that they're powdery at all. I mean, they're slightly a little bit soft, but not really even that. I mean, just such a nice texture to them. And these metallic-y shades are like crazy pigmented. They're beautiful. Look at that. Gorgeous. So yes, I highly recommend this one. I absolutely love it. I'm so blown away by this palette. I don't know how they can do it for such an affordable price, but they did it somehow, and I would definitely recommend it. Last palette, and now my neighbor has started doing yard work. So if you hear like weed eating in the background, he's weed eating his yard next door. So, okay, last up we've got the Inferno palette by Bad Habit. This one has the most gorgeous packaging to it. It's just so pretty, and like, again, it's raised, and like just the gradient and the attention to detail, it's just beautiful. I'm so impressed by this. I love how little this palette is too. So it's just like cute and little and perfect for traveling and beautiful. So clearly, I really love this palette. This is what this one looks like on the inside. Just a gorgeous, like fiery looking palette. It's so pretty. So this one is supposed to be duping the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. So let me get that one side by side for y'all. Let's see how I can lay this out. Let me figure this out. Okay, so here they are side by side. So definitely a comparable collection of colors there. Very, very comparable. Obviously the layout is a little bit different. You know, the look of the palette is a little bit different. I mean, this palette really like, that's really hard to do because that's so pretty. But I mean, I think they did a very good job of like giving the same sort of like feel and look to it. Really, really close. Like, for how significant of a price difference there is here, I think they did a great job with the packaging and like trying to give the same look and feel. Swatches, these are beautiful. They are a little bit powdery. I would say closest to the Royals palette, so not as powdery as the Retro Love palette, but I would say maybe a little bit less powdery than the Royals palette. So this one is one of my very favorites that they sent me. It's really, I'll go over my favorites in just a second, but it's really like up there as one of my very favorite ones. It's gorgeous. These are just so crazy pigmented. I mean, those metallics are just beautiful. So here are some comparisons there. So the Naked Heat is on the bottom and the Inferno is on the top. So again, they're not exact. These are very, very close. But as far as like the same sort of feel to them, definitely the same sort of feel. These are really pretty different. This one from the Naked Heat has a little bit more kind of like dimension and duochrome to it, which I think is really pretty, but this one's still a pretty, you know, shadow too. So anyway, there's that one. Gorgeous. So gorgeous. One of my favorites. Okay guys, so those are all the palettes that I have to show you. So a super quick wrap up because I've been talking way too long in this video, but I think that these are just really, really impressive, affordable palettes. My overall favorites, I think, would be the Rosé Highlighter Collection palette. Is that what it was called? Rosé Highlight Collection, the Unicorn Glow Highlight Collection, and then also the Aphrodite 18 color eyeshadow collection and the Inferno. Love these two. Like, these are my standout favorites for sure. And here's the deal. Like, you know, I have the like high-end version of this one, and while I love that palette and I'm glad that I own it, I don't feel any need to go out and buy the high-end version of this one because this is so good. So I really feel like if I had this palette first, I probably wouldn't have felt the need to go out and buy the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. So that's like, my first love is drugstore makeup and affordable makeup. So I think that's why, you know, this sort of stuff just makes me so excited and happy. So I definitely am super impressed with this website and these palettes. I would definitely recommend checking out some of these goodies. All right guys, so that wraps up this video. So I hope that you really enjoyed it and I hope it was helpful for you. Please do a thumbs up if it was, and let me know down below what you think about these palettes. If you've tried them out, I would love to know your thoughts and opinions on them. Ask me any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer those. Please subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!